In 1976, 4 undistinguished boxes of papers were auctioned in the estate sale of Michael P. Bonds, a bookseller in Manhattan. This auction took place in Newark, NJ, and the boxes along with their contents being bought by Dale Alfrey for $25. Alfrey had no idea what was in the boxes when he bought them. When he later went through them, he was surprised that the boxes contained some of the lost science, as well as shocking new details of Nikola Tesla's life as written by himself in long-forgotten notes. These explosive journals revealed that Tesla was the first man to receive communications from life forms not of this planet.
With so many conspiracy theories out there, it's hard to keep track of them all. Welcome to What We Know, where we try to uncover the histories and mysteries of the world by presenting all different theories out there, and the only narrative we push is this. Here's what we know, make up your own mind.
Nikola Tesla, July 10, 1856, 7 January. Nikola Tesla, born as an ethnic Serb in the village of Smiljan, Austrian Empire. He was a subject of the Austrian Empire by birth and later became an American citizen. He was an inventor and also one of the most important contributors to the birth of commercial electricity, and is best known for his many revolutionary inventions in the field of electromagnetism in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Aside from his work on electromagnetism and electromechanical engineering, Tesla contributed in varying degrees to the establishment of robotics, remote control, radar, and computer science, and to the expansion of ballistics, nuclear physics, and theoretical physics. However, despite all of his contributions to science, his name is little remembered outside the field of electronics and physics. In fact, Thomas Edison is often mistakenly credited in school textbooks with inventions that were developed and patented by Tesla. A few of his achievements have been used with some controversy to support various pseudosciences, UFO theories, and early New Age occultism. Most scholars acknowledge that Tesla's obscurity is partially due to his eccentric ways and fantastic claims during the waning years of his life of communicating with other planets and death rays. Many of these fantastic inventions of Tesla are scientifically accurate and workable. It has simply taken mankind this long to catch up to the astonishing ideas of man who died in 1943. It is now known that various governments were extremely interested in Tesla's ideas for weapons and limitless energy, so much so that after his death, the US military confiscated boxes full of Tesla's research and writings. Much of this material has never been revealed to the public. What is not so widely known is that Tesla often suffered from financial difficulties, forcing him to move from hotel to hotel as his debt increased. Many times Tesla had to move, leaving crates of his belongings behind. The hotels would hold on to Tesla's possessions for a while, but would eventually have to auction them off in order to repay Tesla's outstanding bills. Often these sold-off boxes contained notes outlining some new invention or speculations on developing technology. How much was lost over the years, no one will ever know. However, some material escaped the clutches of obscurity and has recently resurfaced after being separated and stored for decades. These trunks, which were eagerly sought after Tesla's death, have become the key to unlocking the mystery of Nikola Tesla really was, and the incredible life that he secretly led. When Tesla died on January 7, 1943 at the age of 86, representatives of the Office of Alien Property, at the request of the FBI, went to the Hotel New Yorker and seized all the Tesla's belongings. 2 truckloads of papers, furniture, and artifacts were sent under seal to Manhattan Storage and Warehouse Company. This load was added to the almost 30 barrels and bundles that had been in storage since 1930s, and the entire collection was sealed under orders from the OAP. Strange behavior considering that Tesla was a legal American citizen. After Tesla's death, there was a scramble by the United States government to find all of his paper notes and research before other foreign powers could find them. Tesla's nephew, Sava Kosanovic, reported that before the OAP had arrived, someone else had obviously gone through Tesla's belongings and taken an unknown amount of personal notes and papers. It was known by the FBI that German intelligence had already spirited away a sizable amount of Tesla's research several years before his death. This stolen material, it is thought, would eventually result in the development of the Nazi flying saucer. The United States was going to make sure that this would not happen again. Anything even remotely associated with the great man was quickly confiscated and lost within the secret networks of the World War II America. Nevertheless, more than a dozen boxes of Tesla's belongings left behind at hotels like the Waldorf Astoria, the Governor Clinton Hotel, and the St. Regis had already been sold to salvagers to pay off Tesla's outstanding bills. Most of these boxes and the secrets they contain have never been found. In 1976, the name Nikola Tesla was not widely known. Dale Alfrey, who had bought Nikola Tesla's boxes from the auction, had little idea of the importance of the papers he now owned. Going through the incredible amount of material, Alfrey at first thought he had uncovered the notes of a science fiction writer. What he read was so incredible that it seemed impossible that any of it was true. Having little interest in what he had bought, Alfrey stashed the boxes in the basement, thinking that he would go through them again later when he had more time. 20 years passed off before Alfrey would once again find the time to open the strange boxes. Unfortunately, time had not been so kind to the precious contents contained within. The papers by now had mildewed badly and the ink had faded from the years of neglect in the damp basement. Alfrey was determined not to let this material disappear forever and started the laborious effort to trying to transcribe the information before it was too late. However, Alfrey soon found himself caught up in reading the remarkable papers. Tesla's notes are shocking in their revelations of the scientist's secret life, a life that up until this time had never been mentioned by Tesla or documented by biographers after his death. These lost journals revealed that in 1899, while in Colorado Springs, Tesla intercepted communications from extraterrestrial beings who were secretly controlling mankind. These creatures were slowly preparing humans for eventual conquest and domination, using a program that had been in place since the creation of humankind, but was now accelerating due to Earth's increased scientific awareness. Letters apparently went unanswered. Tesla spoke in confidence to several of his benefactors, including Colonel John Jacob Astor, who owned the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. These benefactors listened to Tesla and secretly funded what was to be the start of mankind's first battle to regain control of its own destiny, a battle set in motion by Nikola Tesla. While this information seems absolutely incredible, Tesla did give occasional hints to his predicament in various newspapers and magazine interviews. Tesla may have elaborated on the subject in an article called Talking with the Planets in Collier's Weekly. As I was improving my machines for the production of intense electrical actions, I was also perfecting the means for observing feeble efforts. One of the most interesting results, and also one of the great practical importance, was the development of certain contrivances for indicating at a distance of many hundred miles an approaching storm, its direction, speed, and distance traveled. It was in carrying on this work that for the first time I discovered those mysterious effects which have elicited such unusual interest. I had perfected the apparatus referred to so far that from my laboratory in the Colorado mountains, I could feel the pulse of the globe, as it were, noting every electrical change that occurred within a radius of 1100 miles. I can never forget the first sensations I experienced when it dawned upon me that I had observed something possibly of incalculable consequence to mankind. I felt as though I were present at the birth of a new knowledge or the first revelation of great truth. My first observation positively terrified me, as there was present in them something mysterious, not to say supernatural, and I was alone in my laboratory at night. But at that time, the idea of these disturbances being intelligently controlled signals did not yet present itself to me. The changes I noted were taking place periodically and with such a clear suggestion of number and order that they were not traceable to any cause known to me. I was familiar, of course, with such electrical disturbances as are produced by the sun, aurora borealis, and earth currents, and I was as sure as I could be of any fact that these variations were due to none of these causes. The nature of my experiments precluded the possibility of the changes being produced by atmospheric disturbances, as has been rashly asserted by some. It was some time afterward when the thought flashed upon my mind that the disturbances had observed might be due to an intelligent control. Although I could not decipher their meaning, it was impossible for me to think of them as having been entirely accidental. The feeling is constantly growing on me that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. A purpose was behind these electrical signals. Decades later, on his birthday in 1937, he announced, "I have devoted much of my time during the year past to the perfecting of a new small and compact apparatus by which energy in considerable amounts can now be flashed through interstellar space to any distance without the slightest dispersion." Tesla never publicly revealed any technical details of his improved transmitter, but in his 1937 announcement, he revealed a new formula showing that The kinetic and potential energy of a body is the result of a motion and determined by the product of its mass and the square of its velocity. Let the mass be reduced, the energy is reduced by the same proportion. If it be reduced to zero, the energy is likewise zero for any finite velocity. By the summer of 1997, Alfred had finished reading the entire contents of the 4 boxes and was ready to start scanning the papers onto computer disks. Alfred had been more than a little surprised that the voluminous notes and journals contained no drawings or blueprints. It was not until later that Alfred discovered that Tesla detested illustrating his ideas owing to the fact that his own mental blueprints were all that he required to build his inventions. Alfred also noticed that Tesla's journals were often incomplete. There were numerous gaps consisting of days, months, and even years. Alfred surmised that other journals could exist somewhere, hidden away either by the government or by ignorance in forgotten warehouses and attics. Because of these gaps, Alfred started to make inquiries over the internet, hoping that others may have additional information concerning the missing sections. These inquiries obviously attracted the attention of those who were also interested in the lost journals, someone who wanted the journals to remain lost forever. In September 1997, Alfred was home continuing his research while his wife and children were gone for the day to Manhattan. As Alfred now recalls, the phone rang and the caller identified himself as Velikovsky, who was interested in Tesla and the papers that Alfred had discovered. Alfred had spoken to the caller for only a few minutes when suddenly the line went dead. Almost immediately, the front door bell rang. Alfred recalled, "When I went to answer the front door, I found it already open, the 3 men standing in the foyer." Before Alfred could speak, the man closest addressed him by his first name. The 3 men were all dressed in identical black business suits, with white shirts and black ties. Alfred says he could tell that these men in black were not undertakers or simply there for a friendly chat. There was a palatable air of menace around these 3 that I had never experienced before or after. The other 2 men remained close to the door and never spoke. Their eyes remained fixed on Alfred throughout the entire experience. "We understand that you have in your possession some old boxes and papers," the first man said. "We would be very interested in buying these from you." "Well, they are not really for sale," Alfred answered. "Anyway, how do you know about them?" The first man chuckled. "We know a lot about you and your papers. They don't belong to you, but we would be willing to pay you for your troubles. They are of no use to you. In fact, you could be in a lot of trouble for having them in the first place." By now, Alfred realized that the men were not asking to buy his boxes. They were demanding them. He could tell that they meant business, and this frightened him. The first man now slowly moved closer to Alfred, speaking in a slow, deliberate way. He carefully enunciated each word so that Alfred understood perfectly where he stood. "It's no use, you know," the man said. "We are going to get these boxes no matter what you do. You can't stop us. It would be much easier for you and your family if you just gave us what we want. People have disappeared forever over much less than this. I would so hate to see this happen to you, or your wife and kids." The man now stood directly in front of Alfred, his dark eyes fixed and cold. It almost seemed that they had some kind of hypnotic power over Alfred. As he stood there unable to speak, suddenly, all 3 of the strange men turned in union and walked out the front door. Nothing further was said. It wasn't necessary. Alfred understood their message clearly. He was to give up the boxes, his research, even his interest in Tesla, if he wanted to remain out of harm's way. It was as if Alfred was coming out of a trance. He realized what had happened and rushed out the door to confront the man. But they were nowhere to be seen. There was no car in the driveway and the street was completely empty. In fact, the entire neighborhood was eerily quiet. Even the birds had fallen silent. It was as if the world had paused for a moment, then continued on as if nothing had happened. Alfred rushed back into his house and locked the doors. He then went into his study, where he kept the boxes and computer. The room was located at the back of the house and had no separate entrance to the outside. It obviously wasn't needed because all 4 boxes, the papers contained within and computer disk were now all gone. Worse yet, not only were his papers missing, but his computer hard drive had been completely erased. Everything that he had on it, including items not related to Tesla, were destroyed. This is where Dale Alfred's strange story comes to an end. Everything that he had done connected to Nikola Tesla has been taken away from him. Fortunately, due to his spending hours reading the Tesla papers, he has retained a good memory of their contents. The papers that Dale Alfre found revealed a side of Tesla not known to the public. Tesla apparently had spent a number of years trying to translate the mysterious signals he first heard in 1899. His basic interpretation of these signals was that creatures from another planet were secretly here on Earth. They had infiltrated humankind for centuries. They had controlled events and people in order to lead mankind on a path of evolutionary development and essentially were responsible for humans being on the planet in the first place. Alfred wonders if his boxes were the last of the missing belongings of Tesla, or could others still remain forgotten somewhere, waiting to be rediscovered. It can only be speculated on what could be found inside other forgotten boxes of notes and personal belongings. Possibly the missing information concerning Tesla's secret battle with the government and his knowledge of alien life forms. Newspaper articles from the time of Tesla's death relate that possibly over a dozen large boxes of Tesla's notes were never found by the government. These could still be out there somewhere, waiting for some lucky individual to rediscover Tesla's lost secrets.
More than half a century after his death, the story of Nikola Tesla continues to fascinate and generate speculation about what might have been had he been understood and dealt with fairly in his own time. Tesla left behind a legacy of inventions that still have the potential to change life as we know it, and to alter the technological landscape to a degree that defies imagination. Emmy Award-winning television journalist and author Tim Swartz has written 2 books on Tesla and has an easy command of the historical and technical aspects of the great inventor's work. In Swartz's The Lost Journals of Nikola Tesla, Global Communications, Tesla's belief that he was receiving radio transmissions from a hostile alien race is explored. Swartz's second book, Teleportation from Star Trek to Tesla, co-authored with Commander X, deals in part with Tesla's role in the legendary Philadelphia experiment, an attempt by the US military during World War II to render invisible and teleport a battleship that allegedly resulted in mayhem and madness for the luckless crew. That the diversity of Tesla's inventions was exceeded only by his ever-fertile imagination is a fact one quickly grasps when taking even a cursory look into his life and work. Swartz began with some biographical background on Tesla.
Tesla was born in Yugoslavia,
Swartz began,
in what is now Croatia, at midnight between July 9th and 10th in 1856. He had that spark of genius right from the very beginning. There are a couple of people, I think, throughout our history that you could classify as a super genius. That's the best word I can think of. Most people would agree that Einstein was one of our greatest geniuses, maybe Leonardo da Vinci. And Nikola Tesla should fit right up there with those guys, because he just seemed to have this mind that was open to the universe. I suppose that's a rather esoteric way of looking at it, but he had the ability to visualize his ideas to such a point that he could actually see what he was visualizing in 3 dimensions. As he put it, it seemed to hang in the air right in front of my eyes.
While Tesla is often said to have been denied the due credit for a number of important inventions, Swartz talked about some of the revolutionary technologies for which Tesla is credited.
Probably what he's best known for is inventing the AC motor. Our entire system of electricity works with AC current. In Tesla's day, Thomas Edison had come up with a system to deliver electricity to houses and buildings based on the DC current. Direct currents. DC current works fine, but it can't be sent over any great distance. Probably every half a mile to a mile. You would have to have a station that would step the power back up again and send it on for another half a mile. A very inefficient system, and really only good for close areas like New York City. That's where Edison had originally done some wiring, while Tesla had this concept of a motor based on alternating current. The difference being that alternating current can travel hundreds of miles before it has to be retransmitted. This was a revolution for its time. Tesla came up with an actual working version of an AC motor and was the first to build at Niagara Falls. the massive power generating station that supplied electricity to New York City. It was cheap, clean, and efficient, and it actually worked. That's probably Tesla's greatest claim to fame.
The invention of radio, while Tesla was never credited with it when he was alive, is also officially listed as being his creation.
He came up with the original concept for it. Using the AM and shortwave frequencies that we know today, Marconi actually used a device that he built based on Tesla's patent from a couple of years before. And after Tesla died, the Supreme Court awarded Tesla the rights to say that he was the inventor of radio. Tesla also came up with the first remote control. He demonstrated it by building a little boat that he had fixed with a motor. He put it out on a lake in front of newspaper reporters, and with this device that he held in his hand, he made this little battery-driven boat just buzz all over this lake from a distance. He also patented a torpedo for use in warfare that could be guided by remote control. This was in the early 1900s, and the concept was pretty wild, even then. But everything we have today, from the remote control of your television to your garage door, those little toy cars that drive around, all were based on an original Tesla concept.
While working with a radio receiver designed to monitor thunderstorms, Tesla stumbled onto something quite extraordinary.
Tesla thought that possibly he had received a radio signal from outer space that he said could conceivably be from extraterrestrials, which is a pretty amazing concept for his time. They speculated that there could be life on Mars, but nobody had suggested it too seriously. Tesla was conducting experiments in Colorado Springs, Colorado in 1899 with a pretty good-sized radio receiver because he was fascinated by the way lightning played in thunderstorms. He was trying to come up with a way to harness the power from thunderstorms. And one evening he received what he called regular signals. You know, like beep, 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 not the usual static you hear from thunderstorms and lightning. He wondered at the time if he wasn't listening to one planet greeting another, as he put it. From that point on, it became somewhat of an obsession of his, to build better and better radio receivers to try to see if he could repeat what he heard. He got to the point where he claimed that he was actually receiving voice transmissions. He said it sounded just like people talking back and forth to each other. He made notes saying that he was actually hearing intelligent beings from another planet, talking to each other, but he didn't say what language they were speaking, so I have no idea. But obviously he said he understood them.
Tesla used a bit of deception when he attempted to invent a way of broadcasting electricity through thin air, like a radio signal.
Instead of having to wire the entire country, Tesla thought it would be a good idea if you had transmitters, maybe just one or several scattered across the country, that could literally transmit electricity into the air. Then all we would have to do would be to have an antenna at our homes, either up in the air or buried in the ground, that would pick up all the electricity that you ever wanted to power your house with. In fact, one of his last great experiments was building an electrical transmitter on Long Island, New York, near the town of Warden Cliffe. It's now referred to as the Warden Cliffe Tower because it was this very distinctive tower topped off with a ball on the very top of it. The original concept was that you'd cover the ball with something like copper, and that would be the antenna that would transmit the electricity.
However, Tesla told his backers at the time, the Westinghouse Corporation, that he was building a radio transmitter that would be so powerful that it would pick up its signals anywhere in the world.
Before he got it finished, unfortunately, he was found out. Marconi had just sent some Morse code signals across the Atlantic Ocean, and his backers were coming to Tesla and saying, "Marconi did this, and we've given you thousands of dollars and haven't seen any results of it yet." So they pulled the backing from him, and he lost the property. The tower and transmitting station were razed before he could finish it. And to this day, scientists still argue back and forth about whether the concept is feasible or not. Most people think that it is, but there could be problems associated with it. Some people can't imagine that the atmosphere could hold that amount of electricity without causing your refrigerator to shock you if you touched it or things like that.
But Tesla's failure at Warden Cliffe did lead to another idea, one with even more potential for liberating mankind from its dependence on expensive energy: free energy.
He believed that it would become possible to harness energy directly by connecting to the very wheelwork of nature. Tesla worked a lot with ideas dealing with free energy, some of it having to do with his transmitter, where he could generate electricity into the air. That's not quite free energy. You'd still have to generate the electricity before you transmit it into the air. But Tesla had the idea that you could draw energy from the ether. Now, it's rather an archaic term, dealing with the energy that permeates space and the universe. In the 19th century, the astronomical phenomena that they observed at the time they attributed to this energy that they thought was flowing between the planets and the galaxies. Tesla thought that there would be ways that you could tap into this, and he actually has a patent of a little device that looks an awful lot like a solar collector. But instead of collecting solar power, it would collect, as he called it, radiant energy. When he referred to radiant energy, he meant this energy that was permeating everything. His concept was that you would set this flat disk up outside of your house, and it would absorb this energy, which you could then power your house or business with.
Obviously, not the kind of thing the suppliers of electricity were anxious to promote.
Tesla, at a press conference honoring his 77th birthday in 1933, declared that electrical power was everywhere, present in unlimited quantities, and could drive the world's machinery without the need of coal, oil, gas, or any other fuels. A reporter asked if the sudden introduction of his principle wouldn't upset the present economic system. And Tesla replied, "It is badly upset already."
Another invention of Tesla's was also suppressed, this time by the US and other world governments.
After J.P. Morgan and Westinghouse cut off his support at Warden Cliffe, Tesla found himself in increasingly dire financial circumstances, nearly broke, and finding the United States on the brink of war. Tesla dreamed up a new invention that might interest the military: the death ray. The mechanism behind Tesla's death ray is not well understood. Tesla said it was an outgrowth of his magnifying transformer, which focused its energy output into a thin beam so concentrated it would not scatter, even over huge distances. He promoted this device as a purely defensive weapon, intended to knock down incoming attacks, making Tesla the grandfather of the Strategic Defense Initiative. Tesla also stated that another of his inventions would allow entire cities to be devastated by explosive electromagnetic transmissions across intercontinental distances to anywhere on the planet with no defense possible, and that Tesla shields, produced by the same device, could defend an entire country against aircraft and shells. Tesla stated that this device could melt an engine and could travel through interstellar space faster than light. If aimed at the moon, it would turn a spot on the surface into incandescence.
Schwartz said that Tesla appeared to be referring to something vaguely similar to modern concepts of laser or particle beam weapons, but possibly utilizing microwave electromagnetic transmissions of enormous power traveling at speeds comparable to the velocity of light.
In fact, Tesla made references to his experiments where he stated that he was producing a thin beam of intense light that could slice through metal. This sounds an awful lot like a laser beam, right? Which wasn't officially invented until many years later.
Tesla said at the time that if every country were equipped with the death ray, there would be no more wars, an idea similar to later beliefs about nuclear weaponry. The US, the Soviet Union, Germany, and Japan all took an interest in Tesla's weapon in the late 1930s, though none of them ever actually purchased the device. However, according to Schwartz,
substantial evidence that Russia and the United States have been researching Tesla-based technologies that could produce results very similar to the death ray that Tesla proposed. This could be the source of the warning given by Russian Premier Nikita Khrushchev in 1960. Khrushchev referred to the advent of a new class of Soviet superweapon, so powerful it could wipe out all life on Earth. The comment made at the height of the Cold War clearly did not refer to nuclear weapons, already an integral component of the feared Soviet arsenal. In fact, the American HAARP, High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, array could be our response to Russian experiments using Tesla technology.
Approximately 3 train boxcars full of Tesla's notes and diagrams were confiscated by the US government shortly after he died in 1943. Who knows what other technological marvels might be locked away in some government vault? Perhaps awaiting some future time to be brought forth as something completely new. And what if Tesla's work had never been suppressed by governments and industries bent on controlling the economy and maintaining a comfortable status quo that had no room for the Yugoslavian-born genius.
I definitely think we would have a better world today. We definitely would not be dependent on fossil fuels as our main energy source. If Tesla was allowed to continue his work unhindered, and if he had had the money to continue that work, we would see a lot more things in the way of non-polluting energy. That would be the number one difference in our society, and that's a pretty major difference. Tesla was very hot on the idea of using electricity to power just about anything and everything. We would have electric cars, but we'd have efficient electric cars. We wouldn't have these cars that require these huge lead cell batteries that go dead every 200 miles. We would probably not be wired into a grid system. We would probably have the ability to generate electricity within our own homes and be able to use that power. But how can anybody make money off of that? That concept right there just strikes terror in most oil men across the world. The idea that we could generate our own energy within our own homes and not have to be dependent on outside sources. So I think that alone is one good reason why we don't see a lot of Tesla technology available to us right now.
But that situation need not last forever.
Hopefully that will change. More and more people like myself are becoming interested in Tesla, and a lot of these people are scientists too. They grew up like I did, reading these articles and books about Tesla, and now they're interested in continuing his experiments, so we could really see some changes in the next 20 or 30 years as these scientists hopefully are able to crack this wall of silence that's been built around Tesla.
An eccentric genius and a man extraordinary in every respect was born on the night of July 10, 1856, in the Croatian village of Smijen, a village near Gospa Galika in Krajina, a military district of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, now known in the Republic of Croatia. A purpose was behind these signals. They too are the results of an attempt by some human beings, not of this world, to speak to us by signals. Nikola Tesla. According to MessageToEagle.com, this event took place at the stroke of midnight, with lightning striking during a summer storm. Because of the unusual moment of his birth, the midwife commented that he'll be a child of the storm, to which his mother answered, "No, of light. The great man is gone, but he will be remembered forever." Those who knew him say he was not a normal human, but a superhuman, either a reincarnated master or even an ET with superior mental powers placed here to assist in Earth's technological development. Nikola Tesla could have gone down in history as the man who invented the 20th century. Instead, his theories were ridiculed, and he died alone in a hotel bedroom. Mostly, he did not improve on already existing technology, but created prototypes, and sometimes entire new industries. Many of his pioneer inventions he carried with him to the grave, but he believed in the destiny of man who, in his words, searches, discovers and invents, designs and constructs, and covers with monuments of beauty, grandeur, and awe the star of his birth. Velikovsky. Tesla was the first to attempt to communicate with neighboring worlds using radio waves. In 1899, he was at his laboratory in Colorado Springs, driving monstrous surges of power into the Earth and also beaming energy outward from the 280-foot tall tower he had built. He had instruments to record electromagnetic disturbances anywhere within a radius of 1,100 miles. It was an experiment of Frankensteinian proportions. During the tests, Tesla began picking up odd data in his instruments. He was sure that this was a signal of some sort. The signals came periodically, and with such a clear suggestion of number and order that they were not traceable to any cause then known to man. I was familiar with such electrical disturbances as are produced by the sun, aurora borealis, and earth currents, and I was as sure as I could be of any fact that these variations were due to none of these causes. The nature of my experiments precluded the possibility of the changes being produced by atmospheric disturbances. Although I could not decipher their meaning, it was impossible for me to think of them as having been entirely accidental. A purpose was behind these signals. They are the results of an attempt by some human beings, not of this world, to speak to us by signals. I am absolutely certain that they are not caused by anything terrestrial. The feeling is constantly growing on me that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. The feeling is constantly growing on me that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. I am absolutely certain that they are not caused by anything terrestrial. Nikola Tesla. In Collier's Weekly, dated February 9, 1901, Tesla wrote in Talking with the Planets as follows: I can readily demonstrate that with an expenditure not exceeding 2,000 horsepower, signals can be transmitted to a planet such as Mars with as much exactness and certitude as we now send messages by wire from New York to Philadelphia. These means are the result of long, continued experiment and gradual improvement. He claimed he had detected an artificial signal from Mars, or possibly Venus, using high-voltage equipment he had set up at Colorado Springs, Colorado. He also predicted that interplanetary communication would become the dominating idea of the century that has just begun. After informing the world of these signals, he would neither discuss the devices he used nor the signals any further. However, the issue was further researched. According to a report entitled A Historic Report on Life in Space, Tesla, Marconi, Todd, mentioned by Stanton T. Friedman, a nuclear physicist and the best-known scientific ufologist in North America, and probably the world, in his book Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience. The purpose of the paper was to examine the original data of Tesla, Marconi, and Todd to determine whether or not current science was duplicating the effort made by these men to detect radio frequency communication from extraterrestrial life forms on some distant planet. I am absolutely certain that they are not caused by anything terrestrial. Communication, once established, even in the simplest way, as a mere interchange of numbers, the progress toward more intelligible communication would be rapid. Absolute certitude as to the recipient and interchange of messages would be reached as soon as we could respond with the number 4, say in reply to the signal 1, 2, 3. The Martians, or the inhabitants of whatever planet had signaled us, would understand at once that we had caught their message across the gulf of space and had sent back a response. To convey a knowledge of form by such means is, while very difficult, not impossible, and I have already found a way of doing it. What a tremendous stir this would make in the world. How soon will it come? For that it will be some time before accomplished must be clear to every thoughtful being. Something, at least, science has gained, but I hope that it will also be demonstrated soon that in my experiments in the West, I was not merely beholding a vision, but had caught sight of a great and profound truth. Did Tesla's experiments transmit radio signals to some of our nearer planets? According to Su Shu Huang of the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton, stars nearly identical to the Sun are most likely to have developed life, Stanton Friedman writes in his book. Had Tesla unintentionally detected signals from another civilization, or did he simply make an error? Probably we'll never know. Because of his financial problems, he was not a good businessman, but a true scientist. A large part of his research notes and other papers were auctioned off after his death. What happened to his other research papers? How much of Tesla's work remains hidden and confiscated? It is unknown, and thus, much of his scientific work of great value has been lost forever. A great mystery still surrounds him and his genius work. He will never be forgotten.
If you enjoy this video and want to see more like it, please consider subscribing to us and hitting the like button. Feel free to write a comment below and suggest which theory you want to see next. If you'd like to further support this channel, please consider joining. Our membership link will be found in the description box below. We appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for watching.